Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome to my YouTube channel. It's your boy Sidon and this is Fight Concept. So today I'm going to break down the much anticipated rematch of Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol. Now, this will be headlining arguably one of the best fight cards of all time, The Last Crescendo. It's coming up this weekend and the card is literally stacked from top to bottom with some of the best possible matchups ever. Literally 50-50 fights that could go either way. Anyways, let's get into the main fight. Now, the first fight was brilliant, and it lived up to the hype that it was built up to be. As a hardcore boxing fan, I loved the matchup because it was simply a chess match at the highest level, going back and forth for around 12 rounds, keeping it very competitive. You had Bivol being the masterful, crafty technician that he is, versus Beterbiev, the heavy-hitting, unstoppable force. You could describe it almost as a natural case of speed versus power. Now, if you didn't know, let me make it clear to you now. These two are the very best of our generation. Both were undefeated, both were willing to put their titles on the line to find out who really is the baddest man in the division and to be crowned the undisputed champion of the light heavyweight division, first ever in the four belt era, the absolute elite. It doesn't get any better than this. Now, the fight did end with some controversy as many thought Dmitry Bivol had done enough to win the fight. And I guess this comes down to the style of boxing that everyone prefers. You have your pure boxer and you have your pressure fighters. Take your pick. But one thing for sure, it definitely wasn't a robbery as Eddie Hearn claimed as at the fight post-fight press conference. But that's his guy, so of course he's going to have Bivol's back. Personally, despite Bivol's exceptional performance, I thought Beterbiev won by 2 rounds, and I will admit there were some very close rounds which could have gone either way. But it is what it is. Let me quickly run you through the first fight. Now, the early rounds was all Bivol. In fact, I was actually surprised that Bivol was taking it to Beterbiev, and not just that, you could clearly see there was a clear difference in speed. And it was actually impressive to see Bivol constantly move and box behind his jab so easily, establishing his distance and also constantly use his footwork to kind of create the angles he needed to move out Beterbiev's punches. And let's be honest, rightfully so. Beterbiev has knocked out every single one of his previous opponents. I mean, the guy had a 100% knockout ratio prior to his fight with Bivol. Bivol's footwork was and speed was definitely upon display, looking so much more superior. And again, it's not just that; it was also him catching Beterbiev's jabs and also getting through those early close exchanges, which kind of you can tell was building up his confidence, and he looked more comfortable as the fight progressed. He was also perfectly counterpunching Beterbiev's lazy jabs and landing the quicker flush shots. And to be honest with you, I was really surprised by Beterbiev as he looked like he was getting outboxed in those early rounds, and he wasn't as reactive as I kind of expected him to be. Now, I'm not sure if he was pacing himself due to the knee injury, but again, he wasn't as reactive as I kind of hoped him to be. He'd occasionally throw body shots to kind of disrupt Bivol's rhythm, but mainly he was just kind of taking the center stage and trying to walk Bivol down. Now, it's only around round 4 where the tide started to really change, where Beterbiev was really starting to apply more pressure, increase his punch volume, and being a bit more aggressive than he was in the previous rounds. Although most of the punches were landing on Bivol's gloves, in my opinion, I think he won those rounds as he was the more active and busier fighter. Bivol would then kind of adjust by tightening his guard and box more on the back foot. But I felt that as the fight was approaching the halfway point, Beterbiev was really starting to show his dominance more, especially chasing and almost forcing Bivol to take a step backwards. He was getting in more and landing those heavier shots to the body, which I think may have taken a toll on Bivol, especially since you can tell that he was kind of struggling to control the distance. Even when Bivol landed some of the clinical combos within the exchanges, Beterbiev would literally swarm him and overwhelm him with punches around his high guard. It's also fair to say Beterbiev was really stealing the rounds, especially later on in the fight, where he was kind of increasing his volume output and working the last minute of every round. Out of the two of them, Beterbiev definitely finished strong, leading into the championship rounds. And I think this is what kind of made the main difference here. I think Beterbiev's determination is what pulled him through to end up with the win in the end. Honestly, this fight was so good, and I'm glad they're running it back within a quick turnaround. Now, I've also watched a face-off between the two with Steve Bunce, and both men were very serious but reserved, keeping that very cold demeanour. Judging by Bivol's response to Steve Bunce, he definitely looked like he had more of a chip on his shoulder, with more to prove, and especially trying to get those titles back. I quite like the fact that both men, when asked if they would shake hands, neither one of them wanted to, and I guess it shows that this is definitely no fronting. It's definitely both of them having some real bad blood between the two, and I've seen in other media outlets speculating that this stems from the amateur days training together. I mean, check this picture out here. Doesn't look like Bivol's very happy being around Beterbiev, but who knows what went on. For me, this rematch isn't going to start from round 1 again, it's going to continue where it left off at the start of round number 13. For Bivol to win this fight, he needs to replicate some of those early successes by using multiple jabs more consistently, especially when Beterbiev is coming forward. He also needs to kind of increase his volume of punches and fight more of each round, increase his activity throughout the round as well as the entire fight, rather than fighting bursts of rounds, especially in the later rounds. Now, I know this is easier said than done, but now that Bivol has also kind of felt and taken Beterbiev's punches and power, I guess he would have more confidence going into the fight that he can take the power and also engage in more of those close exchanges. At which point, I also think Bivol should clinch more, especially when Beterbiev is coming forward, which would kind of neutralize his attack. On the other hand, for Beterbiev to win, the adjustments I think he needs to make is one to dictate the pace much early on and assert his authority. He needs to potentially throw more feints to see how Bivol would react and work off those counters basically. I think Beterbiev should also set traps for Bivol and engage in more of those exchanges, at which point Beterbiev should really press forward and take away Bivol's distance and throw more of those short damaging hooks and uppercuts, which were proven to be effective in the first fight. The only other factor that is going against Beterbiev is his age. Beterbiev is now 40 years old and has had a few injuries. I question how long he can be fighting at top form for. As they say, father time waits for nobody. I think the rematch will be another 12 rounds of high level chess match just like the first fight, as both were very evenly matched, each to their own skill set. Both are confident in their abilities and both have opposite styles of boxing of one another, which is kind of what makes this fight super exciting. So, for my prediction, now I know it seems a lot of people are favouring Bivol, but I think Beterbiev might just edge it again. I think it will be super close, just like the first fight. I think Beterbiev's power was a bit too much for Bivol to ever be comfortable engaging in those exchanges, which is kind of what I believe derailed him from executing his game plan. But I also think Bivol lacks that power to make Beterbiev respect him. He needs to keep a disciplined fight for 12 rounds, and even if Bivol overcomes those challenges with the necessary adjustment and wins them, I wouldn't be surprised. It could even be a draw, which would lead us into a trilogy. Both men have very high boxing IQ and are worthy of the undisputed crown, but unfortunately there can only be one winner. Well, that's my breakdown of the Beterbiev vs Bivol happening this Saturday. Drop me a comment on who you think is going to win and how. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Sudhan and this is Fight Concept. Until next time, see you in the next video.